Before we begin our presentation, we'd like to show you a video that we created, which gives you a glimpse into the brand that it is today.
Half of the planet's mail flows through the United States Postal Service. Mail reaches every home in the United States. They do this by employing over 500,000 Americans. Last year alone, the Postal Service handled over 160 billion pieces of mail. With over 35,000 retail outlets, that's more than Starbucks, McDonald's, and Walmart combined. They have the largest vehicle fleet in the world, the third largest computing infrastructure in the world, the largest internet system in the world, and the most advanced optical recognition technology to quickly translate and send mail. Connecting all of the country together for only 46 cents at a time.
So let's go back into history to a time when the United States Post Office Department was known for being one of the most innovative organizations of its time. The founding fathers realized the importance of connections and created the United States Post Office Department in 1792. They added this to the Constitution with a mission to bind the nation together. A completely new concept, the free exchange of ideas for every citizen. They started innovating with transport, connecting the nation together through railroads. They even transformed commerce by introducing stamps. For the first time, Americans could prepay for a system, and this centralized the entire postage process. They innovated delivery with the universal belief that every single American should have the right to receive mail, no matter who or no matter where they lived. They continued innovating on transport, first with automobiles, and then with airplanes.
The post office was a respected place to work. People that worked there believed that they were making a difference. Both Tom and I have grandfathers who worked at the post office. This is my grandfather, George Conroy, at his desk in Buffalo, New York in 1960. The people that worked at the post office were dedicated to innovation, even if it meant trying mail by missile, which didn't work. In 1963, they innovated distribution when they created the zip code. They did this again 3 years later when they took mail sorting from hand to automation. Amazon, Facebook, Google, none of these companies would exist without the infrastructure that the post office created. Our country wouldn't be where it is today without all of these innovations. This company was so powerful, it felt like they could do no wrong.
But then they did. The first mistake, which shook the foundation of the post office, was when they ignored the needs and rights of the workers, which resulted in a massive postal strike. President Nixon, in this video I'm about to show, is responding to this strike and responding to the needs of postal workers and the needs for postal reform.
From the time I came to Congress 23 years ago, I have recognized that the hundreds of thousands of fine Americans in the mail service, the post office department, are underpaid, and they have other legitimate grievances. For the past year, almost since the day we took office, both the Postmaster General and I have been working to alleviate not only the legitimate grievances of postal workers, but to move to eliminate the source of those grievances. That is, the obsolete postal system itself, a system that no longer serves its employees, its customers, or the country as it should.
The result of this speech was a new law, the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. And with this new act came a new name, the United States Postal Service. And with a new name came a new purpose. The Postal Service could no longer receive taxpayer money and had to create an annual net profit. This stopped the Postal Service's ability to invest in long-term infrastructure and innovations. For the first time in the Postal Service's history, they had competition. Federal Express. Federal Express swooped in and stole the Postal Service's business. And with the word federal in their name, they also stole the iconic image of being a trusted federal government agency. In the 80s, facsimile was invented and completely transformed business communication. In the 90s, internet completely changed how we communicated forever. As competition continued to innovate, the Postal Service stood still. And we can see the result at the post office. We see office hours shortening, or sometimes even closing. We see long lines. We see constantly being unmaintained, confusing forms, and a deteriorating infrastructure. An ever-increasing amount of junk mail, and a name used interchangeably with someone completely losing control. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, the Postal Service did not learn from their mistake in 1970, and once again, the government restricted their ability to invest in their future with the law of the Postal Accountability Enhancement Act, which demanded the Postal Service pay $5.5 billion annually for retiree benefits 75 years down the line. So that means postal workers not yet born, they just have to pay for. This is a mandate so extreme, demanded only of the Postal Service and no other government entity.
And this decision created a huge financial burden in the organization. For the first time in its history, they report losses. And this trend continued year after year. Even in 2012, when the economy is supposed to be recovering, they reported an unprecedented loss of $15 billion. To add to this, they also have another serious problem, and that's the revenue decline. From 2007 to 2012, their revenue has declined over $10 billion. And this is mostly because their main source of revenue is mail, which is a service that keeps on declining and keeps on being less and less relevant for culture today. For instance, we here can see how Americans are communicating today. So while 13 billion email messages are sent daily, just 63 million letters are sent daily. So what are the consequences if the USPS doesn't do anything about this? They will have to face either a public bailout, privatization, or extinction.
So where do we go from here? This iconic brand was built on innovation and technology, and somewhere along the way, they lost the plot. They didn't keep up with culture. But there's still a heart. There's a heartbeat underneath all of these issues. We're attached to the iconic idea of a man that comes to your door every day, that this mail service is built into every right that you have. Who doesn't love a brand whose motto is, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." The post office has a strong set of equities that are built into who they are. They're things that they do well and things they've always done well. They're tactile. In this digital age, they're one communication that we can actually touch and feel. They build communities. They have security. It's a federal offense to tamper with the mail. They're omnipresent. They have access. which is their infrastructure that reaches every American. And they're also historical. So what do we do with all of these equities that they have that aren't aligning now with culture? We need to look into the future and presently what's going on in culture. In the last years, we've seen our financial institutions completely fail. And that led to a lot of lack of trust and security with Americans. Social media has completely transformed the way and speed that we're communicating with each other. The housing bubble, again, a lack of trust and security for Americans. Environmental concerns have people worried about our consumption levels. The millennial generation, they're digital natives, and they're coming of age right now, and they have a completely set of new altruistic ideals. And we're seeing collaborative consumption, which affects the economy. It's peer-to-peer sharing, renting, co-owning. We see brands like Kickstarter and Airbnb.
So we asked ourselves, where is the opportunity? Today, more than ever, we're seeing a growing need for personal connection and community. But we have an opportunity. The fact that USPS interacts with every single American home and business on a daily basis. We saw that access is becoming more important than ownership. Our opportunity lies in our infrastructure of fleet, people, networks, intelligence that gives people access to these goods and services across the nation. With new economies come new concerns. The number one biggest pressing issue today is that of security, trust, and privacy. But USPS is one of the only organizations in this world that is protected by strong federal law, which makes them a trusted, reliable, and secure brand. So when we go back to the ownable equities that USPS has, we can see that we can leverage 3 of them today: security, community, and access. And when we look at the universal service obligation through the lens of these 3 equities, we see an opportunity to move the focus from beyond mail and to align services with current economic trends and cultural trends. And how can we do this? We can do this by moving from a service model that is currently heavily dependent on mail to a flexible service model that can adapt to changing cultures and economies. This means capitalizing on an increasing number of monetary transactions that are happening online every day. This means capitalizing on the number of packages that are sent between peer-to-peers in this new collaborative consumption. This also means securing the identity of all the parties involved in these transactions. It also means that USPS needs to think about people, their needs, and how they can support them. So what if USPS stood for something more than mail? What if it sounded something like this? Our job is to make your world bigger, to enable connections, to support your dreams, to build a stronger nation. We are the USPS, connecting the nation one person at a time.
And what if they supported everything that we did? Since the USPS stands for access, what if they could offer a different mail system that was based on a subscription model, where people could actually choose how oftenly and from whom they want to receive mail? So for instance, the subscription model could start with a basic level of a 3-day delivery to your doorstep. That will be free. Something very similar to what we have today, but just with limited days. Now, if you want to receive your mail more oftenly, what you can do is opt for the 5-day plan and either decide if you want your mail to be delivered to a cluster box in your street or to your doorstep for a little bit more money. And the same logic applies for the 3rd level. What if also you could decide which sources of mail you want to receive? So this is a solution that could be executed pretty quickly, and It will represent an increase of revenue in the organization. Also, since the USPS stands for security, what if they could have an active role in protecting the identity of people in this new peer-to-peer commerce? In order for people to participate in this economy, they usually have to use and log into these platforms through their Facebook accounts, relieving and exposing all their personal information. So what if the USPS could have a system where they can offer a digital identity? Well, people can be certified, so they don't necessarily have to be public, but they can have the option of remain anonymous. And this platform could also collect all your rating systems and all the reputation that you have in line, capitalizing on that. Now, since they stand for community, could there be a possibility for them to be facilitators of this new type of commerce? So they could have an online marketplace where people can easily sell, buy, and rent their used objects by leveraging the infrastructure of the USPS. This means that they can transport these items from place to place, and at the same time offer a payment system that will protect their users. So they could be a kind of escrow account that they provide. And this could go beyond a platform provided by the USPS. This could be applied to every peer-to-peer entrepreneurial venture or any online transaction, where whenever you're facing a checkout screen, you can decide if you want your items to be delivered by the USPS and paid by the USPS. And also, since they stand for community, what if they could offer citizens a platform where you can access all those places where you can interact with government? So here we have an example. What if you can access the IRS forms that you need, file them, and at the same time access your history? And in order to honor the history of innovation, all these strategic suggestions could go in a single platform. Now, the USPS has always stood for connecting every American, no matter their location or their economic status. How can all Americans be included in this type of economy if 20% of them don't have access to the internet? Could internet for all be the new universal service obligation of the Postal Service? Also, being a brand based on communications, does it make sense that your communications look like this? These are the main services of the Postal Service: Express, Priority, and First Class. What does that even mean? Could they have a different name that is more accessible and more clear to people? And just simply change it to 1 day, 2 days, or 4 days. Something clear and straightforward. And also, how can the Postal Service move into the future if they have a look and feel that was created for a company that was exclusively dedicated to provide mail services? This is their main asset, visual asset, the logo. It looks rigid, dated, and even the naming is limiting. So, could there be a possibility to change this name, Postal, to something like progressive, which means moving forward, advancing towards a goal, growth? And there could be a name like United States Progressive Services. And with a new name comes a new era.
The nation is growing. So are we. When united, we are unstoppable. We are surprising and joyful, caring and passionate, courageous and heartfelt. Our connections give meaning to the little ones. Teachers, neighbors, businesses, towns, cities, countries, us and you. USPS, connecting the nation one person at a time.